Streaming is not working, so
Is Brian or is it Susan?
we got to go old school. This is just recording. That's all that's doing.
Oh, just recording?
Yep. And
You're right,
maybe
old school.
whenever you are.
So we're gonna start? Okay. All right, welcome to the Litchfield Park Design Review Board regular meeting. Would you please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, we have on that's Board of Adjustment, that's Board of Adjustment. Okay, we have on our agenda, it says call to the community. This is a time for citizens who would like to address the commission on any non-agenda item as a result of public comment. We can't really take any action other than asking staff to review it and get back to somebody. I have not received any requests. Was there anyone that wanted to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, we'll move on then to business. Number 5A, approval of the minutes. If there are no questions, can we get a motion to approve the July 6th, 2023 regular minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. We will now move on to 5B, which is design plans. Residential requests for a new studio and pool bath located at 1315 North Villanueva Drive. And John, did we have a presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. John Froke, I'm your city planner.
Excuse me before you start. I
Yeah.
don't believe we have the applicant with us.
Okay.
Or an applicant representative.
Why don't can we come back to this one?
Yes, we'll come
Okay.
back. Let's move on
Thanks,
then
Dan.
to 5C, which is a residential request for a new covered patio at 4538 North Village Parkway. Is the applicant here?
We don't have that applicant either.
Okay, moving on.
Are we here?
5D, design plans. New front yard covered patio at 612 North Old Litchfield Road. Is the applicant present? Yes.
Head of the line.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Great.
All right, John, go ahead and
Okay,
give us
thank
the
you,
staff
Chair.
report.
John Froke, I'm your city planner. I'll be presenting the DRB items tonight, and hopefully we'll get the other two applicants here later on tonight. We'll also be doing the Board of Adjustment when we conclude this meeting. We have another project for you to review. This one is at 612 North Old Litchfield Road. The owner is requesting DRB approval to build a lattice-shaped structure attached to the front of the residence. This is a vicinity map. It's a little washed out, but you can see it's the corner lot, Old Litchfield Road, just north of where we're at tonight. This is project's located in Litchfield Park subdivision number 17. It's lot 48. And the existing home is about 2,642 square feet. Property is within the R115 zoning district. And again, it has an North Old Litchfield Road address, but the egress is accessed from Loma, which is the east-west street. So we're right on the southwest corner of Loma and Old Litchfield Road. This is a plot plan. It's upside down, so north would be to the bottom of the sheet. The area of improvements, beautiful home as usual in Litchfield Park. The area that's hatched out would be the lattice structure itself. And again, the home sites onto Old Litchfield Road, circular driveway onto Loma with the parking in to the west of the home. This is a layout from the designer of the structure. It's about 352 square feet. The pergola would provide the shade to the front of the house, and it would be attached to the house itself. Does meet all of the setback and design standards for R115 zoning. This is a profile. You can see the footings, the detailing with the columns and with the roof. The image on the left is basically what would be the north elevation, and then the image here is basically a cross-section of what it might look like from the east and the west building elevation. In closing, believe the project is appropriately designed, meets all of our R115 standards, and we're recommending approval of the application subject to the exhibits provided by the applicant. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. So can you explain the setbacks for
Yeah.
me?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess I thought that zoning was a 30-foot front
Yeah.
yard setback.
Through the chair, Commissioner Dudley, when Daniel first took the project in, we were conversing together on what is the building setbacks. And I'm actually going to defer that back to Daniel. Because the lot had, the narrow side of the lot, might go back to the vicinity map. This probably shows it the best. So because the way the zoning code reads, because the narrow part of the lot is, would be considered the front, and it's got an old Litchfield Road address, that would be considered the front. Technically, it's front yard setback. The way the home was designed back in the day, its orientation is more towards La Loma. So, Danny, can you provide a little bit more background on the setbacks?
Just pull up the plat.
Good question, and we did look at this a month or two ago.
So, to the Chair, Commissioner, Board Member Dudley. This home was constructed pre-1987 for the zoning code went into effect. Their side setback, which is that La Loma side, is set at 25 feet.
Okay.
And so they were able to go back to that 25 feet.
Okay, and then there's also, I think our current code, doesn't it say like you have to observe the setbacks if you have two streets?
Yes.
The same, so but because they were
Yeah.
same thing?
Yeah, and that's it. They're, on the original plat, it had a 25 feet on La Loma, and it had it at, looks like 33 feet.
On the,
And they are allowed to go back to the original, and so the 25, they were allowed to go back to that.
okay. All right, thank you, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only other question that I had was the elevations didn't really show it the way that it will look against the house, the front of the house. Was there any? Did we have any of that?
No, we did not.
Okay.
But maybe the applicant
Yeah.
can elaborate for us.
Okay. And I also wonder at some point maybe could we see like on Google Earth or something the way that the front.
Absolutely.
I'll stop the screen share of the PowerPoint, and then Daniel can pull up the aerial photo.
It was 8-6. part of I think this is 8-6 on here, and then like 7-6 or something like that. So it just depends on how that relates. Oops.
Mm-hmm. You mean like
How
the
it
pitch
relates.
are you talking about, or what do you
No,
mean?
just the height.
Oh, yeah.
The overall height is 8
Mhm.
feet, 8-6, something like that.
Well, I guess I think that there's like that kind of central portico that's super tall, and so I'm wondering like how it's going to integrate with
Oh, that I don't know, because this is all basically flat.
Yeah.
So here's the front of the home.
Okay, is it possible to get like kind of straight on and look at it?
Yeah, I think he's.
Thank you.
So it'll kind of come off of this roof's edge back here and then go straight across.
And so it'll be, where will it fall, well, maybe this might be for the applicant, but with respect to the windows, I'm just wondering like where the line will be for the height. And how, kind of where it will come into the roof.
Ask Carolyn.
The roof.
She said the dummy here to sit in on the meeting.
We'll have the applicant come up to the podium.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead, sir.
thanks. I don't know anything.
Okay.
I was sent here to represent. No, Carolyn says it looked great, so there you
Okay.
go. I have no design eye, but she does, and so does the guy that designed our yard. I don't know if you know Craig Kennedy. He helped design this along with the guy that does the building of it. So
Did he help with this?
Mhm.
Did Craig help with this?
yeah, he came over and walked it down with us and the builder. And Craig's got a real good eye for this stuff. You know, that I can't see it. He describes it. I'm like, I got to see it before I know what it's going to look like. I can't picture it, but between him and Carolyn, they said it's going to look great.
Do you understand what Rachel's talking about?
Yes.
What's happening?
Where will the line come on there? What will you
Yeah,
see
see,
at the windows?
it'll come across here, and then all
Mhm.
this space is just open
Oops.
as it comes across,
Right.
basically at window height.
Mhm.
So, I mean, aesthetically from the street, it might not be aesthetically pleasing.
Ideal. Yeah, I'm concerned about it personally. Can you tell me like like what your hope was for the shade structure? Because I know it's also the north exposure. So, but
Yeah,
I'm guessing in the summertime you get sun there.
The yard, the re-landscaping, we expanded the porch area.
Okay.
There's a very nice, large sitting area, on cobblestone pavers in there. And it's unshaded
Okay.
largely, especially this
This
time. So
summertime.
we're just looking for
Yeah.
a little shade for us sitting out there, for the plants that are in the porch area, for our tortoises that are over there. You can't see them, but they're over there. Yeah, just looking for a little shade. One of my criteria was, because I don't design stuff, but I just said, you know, our nicest feature is that door that we
Yeah.
spend a lot of money
Right.
putting in. I don't want to hide the door,
Yeah.
so it's supposed to come up above that, so we don't block the view of that one thing that looks good there.
Can you tell me what the material is that this is going to be made out of?
Steel.
It's steel?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's all metal, plastic, steel, something like that. It's not wood?
It's not wood, no.
Okay, good, that's what I meant.
So, the part that's more on the west side, is that part in shade most of the time, even in summer?
This side.
Like
The west is over there, next to the garage.
Over there.
right by the garage, yeah. Like that seems like it's a little bit more recessed, like maybe that entry area is sort of shading that most of the time.
In
but
the
it's-
late afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, in the late afternoon, you'll start getting some shade.
Oh, okay, yeah, in the summertime, okay, yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'm concerned, I think it's gonna hide the door, honestly, and I think it's gonna, to me, it doesn't feel like it really is integrated with the style of the architecture of the house. I would like to, I think we have to make a motion one way or the other, and I notice that you have made incredible improvements in the landscaping to your yard in the years past, so I want to commend you on that. It looks beautiful. But I guess I think, in my mind, I would see maybe something with a similar roof line coming out just from that left side that could really sort of create a more enclosed space there, and would also provide quite a good amount of shade for like morning, maybe not like the peak of the day, but anyway, I think that maybe it could be done in a way that would integrate more closely with the architecture of the house. But
What's your timeline on this?
I wanted it done by June.
Well, we'll make next year.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Most of the plants are dead now, so it doesn't, that part of
Okay.
it is passed.
Do you want to table this until he gets us an elevation?
maybe I do think that it would be worth your time to see what it looks like on an elevation. Yeah, I would like. I guess I could make that motion if that's
Okay. Daniel, can we do that?
Absolutely.
We just put it off until they provide us with an elevation showing this?
Yes, you may.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second. You made the motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to, do we want to just leave it open on table, or do we want to set it for the next meeting?
I think it's, Daniel, you need to get the drawing. Let us know that you got it, and share it with us, and then we'll go from there. So whether that's the next meeting, I don't know what sort of timeline they might have.
Okay. All right, well, we have a motion and a second to table this item until we get the additional information. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, it carries. So this will be tabled.
Thank you.
Okay. Now,
Thank you very much.
getting back to our other item,
I need to see it.
as far as 5B, is the applicant here for 5B?
To chair 1315 West Beauty Way, which I believe is item B, the applicant representative is here.
Yeah.
So we can read that. It's okay.
Yeah, let's do that one. So we'll go to 5B.
If you can stop sharing when you get a moment, Dan, I'll pull the PowerPoint back up. Okay, we're back to, Chair, members of the board, we're back to 1315 North Villanueva Drive. On this project, the owner is requesting DRB approval to construct a new studio and pool bath additions that will be about 618 square feet. Here's a vicinity map, so we're just south of Camelback and west of Dysart. It's not far from Camelback Park, so just west of Dysart. This is the image is the building elevation as the home exists today. The site's approximately 19,000 square feet and is zoned R1, and the home that you're looking at is roughly 2,920 square feet. This is a site plan, and basically the additions that are proposed are in the darker part of the image, so about 600 square feet for the building addition here. And just a few components of that. There's a pool bathroom right here, a kind of a living area. It's identified as a sitting room and a wet bar next to the bathroom, and then there's a bedroom and a small bathroom proposed at that location. There's no oven, range, or stove in the room addition as part of the studio. All the colors, materials, overhangs, finishes, flat roof tile will match the existing residence. These are the proposed building elevations, so the area of the addition are identified on these building elevations in color. Should have shown this to you first. This is the actual plot plan. So again, north is up towards the top of the sheet, swimming pool in the backyard, and then the room addition itself is proposed off the east elevation. The project does meet all the setbacks and zoning requirements from our zoning code in R1. And as we indicated, the homeowner plans to match the existing slump block of the home. We feel it ties in nicely with the existing home. We feel the project will complement the neighborhood and ties in really nicely with the existing home, the streetscape on Villanueva, and we're recommending approval of the project subject to the exhibits provided by the applicant. We're happy to answer any questions tonight.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? No? Okay, and we have our applicant is here. Do you have anything to add to what they have had to say?
No, just to get this through so we can apply for variance.
Okay.
She's a repeat customer there.
Okay. Well, is there a motion, unless there's some discussion, is there a motion to approve?
All the setbacks are met, I think we're good with it.
And the lot coverage was right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second
Mhm.
to approve as recommended by staff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No nays, there are none, so it passes. Should have taken,
Good job, Lydia.
I should have taken John up on his
I
offer.
was on the other location.
Oh, you went over to the library? Yeah.
All right, so now, moving on to the next one then, would be 5C. And do we have an applicant here? for
We
that?
do not, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Well, are you comfortable moving on, or should we move to table this item until the applicant can be here?
Is there some hope that the applicant may make it, or you don't know?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Oh, so you're saying should we just approve it without talking to them?
No, I'm giving it out as an option. I'm not saying that's what I necessarily want to do, but
If you want me to briefly go through the slides, just so you can see what's proposed, we can do that before you make a decision, or I can give a full presentation, or you can.
I think I'd like to just deal with the idea, because if the applicant's not here and the board decides they want to hear from the applicant before we approve it, then I just assume not
Okay.
go through all that right now, because we'll do it again
Right.
when they come back, so. But I'm willing if the majority wants to do that.
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we table it until the applicant can be here next time.
Okay?
Second.
A motion a second to table until the applicant can be there. And in the unlikely event before tonight's meetings are over, if the applicant shows up, I would like to include in that motion that we could then take that out of order while we're all here.
Yes.
But anyway, I have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. So it is tabled, and with that, we move on then to staff report on current events. Is there a staff report? Yes.
Yeah, I've got one item, Chair. So, in addition to being the city planner, I'm also the special projects manager for the city. So, one of my projects is Litchfield Square, and I'll just give you a brief update on that, and then I'll turn it over to Daniel if he's got anything. So, Litchfield Square continues to progress on construction. Aiken Gardner is our general contractor. They're mobilized on site. They have been for probably over a year now before I showed up here as a planning consultant. We closed Honeysuckle Street in its entirety, temporary closure from Old Litchfield Road west to Desert. That occurred on Monday, the 24th of July. We've done extensive property owner and tenant outreach. Anytime we do a road closure, and I've done these elsewhere in the valley, those can be challenging. We've really not had any issues per se. This is the second week of the temporary closure. Last week, a week ago today actually, there was I believe it was a one inch water line that was damaged. We didn't expect, Aiken Gardner didn't expect the water line to be there, and so we had to do an emergency repair. I think the water line damage was at about 9 a.m. and literally in less than 2 hours. We had to shut the water off, make the emergency repair, and turn the water on, I believe, before 11 a.m. So fortunately, we didn't hear a lot of complaints or any on that situation. The road closure is on track to have the street completely rebuilt. If you've been on Honeysuckle, the pavement quality was horrible, frankly, and so all the pavement's been pulled up. I was out there this morning with Aiken Gardner and with our design engineer. If you go out there today, you can see the concrete curbing and the angled parking on the north side of Honeysuckle. It's been in now for a few weeks. We're adding 3 new city street lights on the north side of Honeysuckle to light up that part of Litchfield Square. Those pole bases are in. Sturgeon Electric is the electrician doing the work for us. On the south side, as of this morning, Aiken Gardner was setting forms. They're going to be pouring the south curb for Honeysuckle either tomorrow or early next week. And so, as I said, Monday, September 4th is Labor Day. They plan to open the road back up before the Labor Day weekend. And as council member and board member Romack indicated, we do have design plans that have come in for Lot 3. Those plans are in for review. That's a 2-story mixed-use project that went through DRB, was it last year, Daniel? Before I came on board as a planner. So we're reviewing those plans, and then we are working with a different developer who's interested in buying the rest of Litchfield Square. So I'm working with the city manager on that particular component. It's a letter of intent, LOI, that I believe the manager plans to bring to council in a couple of weeks to council for further discussion. So things seem to be going well. The dirt stockpile, if you've paid attention on the east side of Litchfield Road, the stockpile is starting to shrink a little bit. We have a need for some soil elsewhere in the city, so we're working with Aiken Gardner to transport that off-site and move it to other parts of the city where we could use some dirt. So things seem to be moving along. So far, so good. So that's our update on Litchfield Square. I'll answer any questions or turn it back over to Daniel if he's got anything.
To the chair, I have nothing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we really can't discuss it. Yeah. So, okay, well, the next item then would be a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And with that, we will now move on to the Board of Adjustment hearing. I think we did the Pledge of Allegiance in the first meeting, and I think everybody here was there for that, so unless someone objects, I'm going to just move on to approval of the minutes. So, approval of the minutes, discussion and action to approve the May 4th, 2023 Board of Adjustment minutes. If there's no discussion, can I have a motion?
So move.
A motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there are nays, none. So we have the minutes approved, and the next item is for a property at 514 East Fairway Drive. And is the applicant here on that? Yes, okay. I'm going to take a moment here quickly. And Board of Adjustment is a sort of quasi-judicial body, which means it's sort of like a court, not really, but it's not like the others. So the hearing is a preliminary thing where evidence is presented. The applicant gets the opportunity to advise. We follow kind of the same format. I never know, we never know, when we have a big turnout on items, whether or not there is going to be any opposition or people that are there in favor. the one thing I always tell everybody is that we're gonna do this in a very organized way. Everything gets taped anyway, but it's particularly important for both the applicant and should there be anybody that was opposed, for them that we have a clear record of what went on, because if somebody has an appeal, they need to be able to have the record. But I always promise everybody that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak, so nobody's gonna be left out. You know, I do say, sometimes we get, and I have no way of knowing, but occasionally we get a meeting where there's 7 people here from the neighborhood, and they're all in favor, you know, or they're all opposed, but they're kind of together. I've always thought, to the extent that they could maybe among themselves have a spokesman, we can always acknowledge that all these people were there, you know, by name. So anyway, with that, let's move on to, in the hearing, to staff. For public hearing for variance ZA 23-02, a rear setback variance at 514 East Fairway Drive.
Great, thank you, Chair. John Froke, City Planner. We have 2 variance applications tonight. The first one is Unicated Chairs, 514 East Fairway Drive. On this one, the property owners requested a variance to allow a shade structure to be built in the rear yard with a side view fence. The variance would allow a Ramada to have about a 6'9" rear yard setback, and we have some exhibits to show you tonight. Here's a vicinity map. It is a golf course lot on the Wigwam. So we're north of Indian School, again, west of Dysart, and the location is there off of Fairway Drive. Here's a vicinity map. You can see the golf course. So the property itself is kind of a trapezoid shape, and with a street address off of Fairway. A little bit of background. So the site's part of the Litchfield Park subdivision number 6. It's lot 13 and zone R115. As part of the project, the applicant would like to construct a Ramada and complete some fencing improvements adjacent to the golf course. According to the zoning code, the side yard view fence requirements would not allow the Ramada to be placed at this location, and we'll get into that a little bit momentarily with a different exhibit. Just for some background, because fencing out in Litchfield Park can be a little tricky, so Daniel provided, this is actual text from the zoning code, definitions related to walls. I will, for the record, read both of them word for word. So the first one defines a wall or fence full view is a wall or fence constructed so that at least 75% of the top 4 feet of its height is open and unobstructed when viewed on a horizontal plane from any point perpendicular to the fence line. A wall or fence is considered to be open and unobstructed even though metal rods, metal balusters, or fence posts are utilized within the top 4 feet, so long as 75% of such area remains open. So kind of a complicated definition of what a view fence is that we might find on a golf course in Litchfield Park or next to open space or a trail system. The other definition, just for matter of context for the application, is a wall or fence partial view is a wall or fence constructed so that at least 75% of the top 2 feet of its height is open and unobstructed when viewed on a horizontal plane from any point perpendicular to the fence line. A wall or fence is considered to be open or unobstructed even though metal rods, metal balusters, or fence posts are utilized within the top 2 feet, so long as 75% of such area remains open. Back in May, I know we're here to talk about Fairway, but a few months ago we had a different variance application, had nothing to do with view fences, but in that part of the city, it was prevalent to see this type of fencing just because of the way the subdivision was approved years ago with a lot of open space. And so we see both types of fences throughout Litchfield Park. Here's a plot plan of the backyard. So it's a beautiful property. The pool is existing, and this would be, here's the house, existing house, and this would be the ramada. So the definitions, the dimensions, 6 foot 9 feet from the golf course on the north side of the lot. This is approximately 22 feet 1.5 inches along the east, and then the hardscape patio area that's uncovered is about 15 feet square. Here's some ramada details from the applicant, just gives you kind of a feel for what the actual look of the ramada would be. So multiple columns, a roof that would match the house. Underneath would be a barbecue area, countertops, looks like a cooker. And there are some dimensions here, about 10 feet in height and about 8 feet between columns. The fence detailing, this is showing pretty much it looks like it's about 4 feet of wrought iron over 2 feet of block. The ramada itself is, in this image, is shown here, so I can toggle back. That view is about right in here, kind of looking east or northeasterly to get a glimpse of the ramada. We've gone through this on past applications, so required findings. This is pretty common throughout the state of Arizona on what's necessary for the board to grant a variance. So in Litchfield Park, these are very consistent findings that you might find elsewhere in Arizona. So required findings for a variance, there are 4 that must be met in order for the application to be granted, and these include the following. Finding A is that there are special circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use referred to in the application which do not apply to other properties in the district. B, that such special circumstances were not created by the owner or applicant. C, that the authorization of the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights. And then finally, finding D is that the authorizing of the application will not be materially detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity, to adjacent property, to the neighborhood, or the public welfare in general. Our staff analysis, we go through each finding as part of our review and analysis of the application. We feel that under finding A, the lot is oddly configured. As you can see, it's kind of a trapezoid shape. It's got that chevron rear property line, which is unique. This isn't like it's a square or rectangular shaped lot, so we feel that finding A is met. B, staff finds that the special circumstances associated with the property were not created by the owner or the applicant. We feel that finding B is met. Finding C, that there are limited options for outdoor use of the lot with the proposed ramada location in the rear yard. The ramada location is positioned in the manner will provide additional enjoyment of the property. We feel that the way the project has been designed, that finding C has been met. And then finally, finding D, if the variance is granted, it will allow the proposed ramada to be constructed at a location that will not be materially detrimental to adjacent properties. The ramada would not be visible to the general public from Fairway Drive, and we feel that, and I apologize, that should be finding C. I corrected that. Finding D has been met. Going back to the aerial photo and the vicinity map, as you can see, the lot is pretty isolated. A little bit of a detail. When the subdivision was platted before the city incorporated in 1987, it looks like there was going to be maybe a roadway extension between the applicant's lot and the home here to the southeast. So there's a all-weather surface in this area that's there for potential fire apparatus or fire trucks, if you will. Hopefully it never needs to be used, but we feel that with the isolation of the lot, the way the subdivision was approved back in, I believe, 1970, 71, that the finding has been met. In conclusion, our recommendation is we feel that the application should be approved with the variance as filed based on the application meeting the 4 required findings. If the board agrees, then the ramada shall be located in a manner where it meets the required 10-foot setback from the main house. You might remember from past applications, and the applicant is showing the 10 feet. That's a big deal out here in Litchfield Park, so they are showing the 10-foot separation from the home to the ramada. A lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant's here and available when you're ready to hear from the applicant.
Okay. Any questions from staff?
I have a question.
Mhm.
The specific line of code that they're seeking a variance from, can you explain to me what that, when I read what I think is the code that we're talking about here, I think that it is actually created to sort of create a very open lot in golf course backyards. Is that correct? I mean, so essentially it is saying like if you have a golf course house, you can't put an accessory structure in.
Right. So, Chair, board member, this is complicated, and I'm still getting used to. Been doing plan zoning for a long time, and I'm still getting used to our codes and ordinances. But when you look at, say, the aerial photos, so the way the house is laid out now, everything matches. So from an architectural standpoint, it's a very pleasing looking property. In the back, if you were to do a ramada, this is probably about the logical place that somebody would want to do that. It's off the main house, and then it's next to the pool. The view fencing, and I'll let the applicant speak to that, I think is more secondary in terms of some long-term improvements that he would like to make. A few years ago, the garage came through DRB before my time, and so there's a fairly new garage in front of the house. You can see it on the aerial photos. So from a pure variance standpoint, if a ramada were to be constructed on the property, that is about where staff would expect it to be found.
So what I'm asking is, if I had any of the other golf course houses, could I build a ramada in my backyard based on the zoning code?
I might defer that back to Daniel with, see if he can answer better than I can.
To the chair, board member Dudley. The code does say homes with a side yard view fence, your rear setback becomes the length of the side yard view fence. So if you have a golf course lot that your backyard, only your backyard abuts it, you're not required to have a view fence. So those people could. This property is kind of weird, I think, on a peninsula.
So it's required, like the kind of oddness of the lot is requiring a view fence that's it makes it more onerous for this property than it does for the other golf course properties. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, if I can make a quick comment. Going back to my first year in law school on real property, and they were talking about variance, and this statement was made, the most common variance you see, it looks like a slice of pizza with the wider part out toward the road and going to a point in the back. where if there isn't some variance allowed, then you have a property owner, in those cases, they can't do much of anything with that area. This is not that bad, but it kind of is going along those lines.
Okay. Yeah, that helps me because I guess I was thinking that all golf course homes had to have a side yard or side yard view fence, but they don't. Is what you're saying? Okay. Yeah.
The other thing too, and this is just me, the view fence, to my way of thinking, is more for the homeowner looking out on the golf course, as opposed to people driving their golf cart along and looking in
Yeah.
people's backyard.
Yeah.
And if you can't see it from the front either, and if we haven't received any objections from
Yeah.
the neighbors on either side, then it makes it a little easier. And it is an odd looking lot, just compared to the others.
I think it's a cool lot.
No, just, I want to talk about a view fence as opposed to a pool fence. This is a pool enclosure.
To the chair, Board Member Romack, no, this is going to be full-blown. It will serve as a pool fence. You've got a high-low pool fence, but it's actually going to serve as the property line fence.
Okay. Well, I know that Mary, years back, has said that there can't be a step on a pool fence.
It's
Now-
5 feet above the step, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're saying, right? That's
no, it's 5. You have to have 5 feet of no step.
Yeah.
In
So
Okay.
it's
Well,
I
this
think-
There's further drawings, isn't there, John, that you have for the actual fence as well?
Yeah.
So I think
That shows the height to be compliant with a pool.
Okay.
With something obstructing from somebody being able to get into the.
Yeah, you know what I'm getting at is,
Yes, it
Yeah.
has to be compliant to act as a pool fence or a
Correct.
barrier for a pool as well.
right.
And that's all the dimensions. So the wrought iron will be to pool code.
Okay.
Since the block is acting as the step, then from that step, the next one is, I can't remember off the top of my head the exact dimensions, whatever the code says for that fence that has
5
to be,
feet.
that's what that surrounding
Okay.
area will be. And that will be continuing actually around the entire property, which is probably gonna be about 215 linear feet of it. That
Let's
will-
get Scott up here to the podium and he can kind of walk you through some of those details.
You want more details?
Sure, that's how it works.
So just in regards to, so the two things, and I don't know if it's with the board, the main thing is the structure, of course. And the side view fencing, as you know, in Old Litchfield Park, you drive everywhere, it has, every house has side view fencing. So the ordinance puts me at 0 feet setback. And actually, as what it does is if you read the ordinance, it puts every single property in Old Litchfield Park at 0 feet setback, unless people are gonna start constructing block walls to go along the side of their property to ixnay that side view fencing, that piece. But anyways, so we're redoing the fencing as well. One of it is to maybe help kind of give some barrier from a couple coyotes that have gotten through the fencing into our backyard before, and also to protect a little bit from everybody that walks along the golf course with their dogs as well. Is there I think there's, John, if I go further, is there?
Those are the only exhibits.
I lied, okay.
Yeah.
That's about it. I mean, the Ramada it'll just fit. Everything fits with it, with the exception of dealing with the side view piece.
So
I guess I could answer questions better than maybe doing. I'm not sure. If I'm ready for
You have a question for the
presentation piece.
applicant?
I have a question that is probably, I don't know if it's for the applicant or for the city, but the metal part is to be 5 feet because that's the pool code, right? And then it's sitting on top of like 2+ feet of block.
Yeah. So we'll have the block fencing, which is their 8-inch blocks,
Mhm.
and so we'll go about 16
Okay.
inches plus a 2-inch cap. So I'll put us 18 inches, and then whatever from that step is going to make sure it's going to be to code.
5.
And I think I have a newer, or the original that was submitted. And I know eventually that next thing will have to go to design review as well, but.
So my question on that, I guess, is that I was under
5
the.
feet.
Yeah, so it's 5 plus a foot and a half, which is at 6.5 feet then, like, if you do 2 blocks?
Oh yeah, the total, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be where that's
So
at.
that's- so
But depending on the elevation of the property. I mean,
Right.
so some of the block, depending on the slope of the property, there might be like 2 1/4 or 2.5 blocks
Yeah.
visible, because it is going around the entire part. So we're taking it. It will be going from here.
Okay,
all
so
the way
are
around to
there, this is for the city, I think, is there a special, like, code exception for view fences? Because I thought that it was like 6 foot was the max height for all of our fences.
To the chair, board member, you are correct. Fences have a max height of 6 feet. Doesn't matter if it's view fence, partial view fence, doesn't matter if it's solid block wall, wood, 6 feet is the maximum height.
Okay, so does he need a variance for that as well?
We would just handle that in design and review, wouldn't we? For the approval to make sure it's, or it doesn't, you know.
To the chair, board member Dudley, at this point, he does have to go back to DRB and get permits, and neither of those are going to allow for a 6 foot wall.
Above 6 foot.
Yeah, above 6 feet, sorry, above 6 feet. Today, your guys' purview is mainly the pergola, the proposed pergola, and whether or not it can be allowed built with the view fence. We're just trying to include the view fence to show you what the whole.
But regardless, I'm
Oh.
glad that came up before I submit the final plans for the
Yeah.
design review then.
Right.
Okay, because I was thinking the view fence was like part of this variance package or something that, but it's just for the pergola setbacks that we're talking about today. Okay.
Good call.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Well, let's close the hearing first, and then we will go into the taking action. So we get a motion to close the hearing, and then we'll go into.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
I'll
Okay,
second.
So we got a motion, we got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the hearing is closed. Now we can move forward if someone wants to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the variance request. I don't have the number here, but do you have it?
Yeah, but give me a second.
ZA 23-02.
-02. Okay. Yeah, I move that we approve for 514 East Fairway Drive. The variance is submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of approving as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That motion carries. Okay,
Really?
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, moving on. The next item is at 263 South Cascada, and is our applicant present? Okay, the applicant is present. All right, with that, we'll ask staff to go open the public hearing and ask staff to make a presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chair, board members, Board of Adjustment. The second and final variance application tonight is 263 South Cascada Circle. Property owners requested a variance to allow an existing attached shade structure, it's partially built, to remain in the rear yard. The variance request is to reduce the 7-foot minimum required side yard setback to 3 feet to allow for an attached shade structure. The existing shade structure is located in the southwest side of the home. And just for context purposes, this is a vicinity map, so we have a cul-de-sac lot that actually backs onto, this is Indian School Road, so it backs onto an arterial street. This is Osborne intersecting with Indian School in Avondale, so we're on the northwest side of Indian School Road. The post office, for reference, is right there. Here's an aerial photo. You can see Indian School Road to the south, right here. Basically, again, cul-de-sac lot, it's Cascada, the home here, and then the shade structure is along what would be approximately the south property line. A little bit of background on the property itself. So it's part of the Litchfield Park subdivision number 15A. It's lot 42, and it's in the R18 zoning district. In this district, in R18, it requires a 12-foot side yard setback. Again, we were incorporated as a city in 1987. We do have that provision where homes built before incorporation as a city can go back to the setback approved as part of the subdivision plat in Maricopa County. In this case, would be 7 feet. So the applicant recently built a pergola in the rear yard, side yard area. They were cited with a stop work notice, asked to come down here and talk to planning and to our building safety department. That was a few months ago. We've been working, Daniel's been working with the applicant on the variance application to come before you tonight to consider the variance. This is a plot plan. It's really nicely designed and clear so we can show you what's being proposed. So again, single-story home is existing. This is an attached structure here. So we have some photos that will show you on the actual construction, provide you a little bit more context. Building elevation is really clear and nicely done in terms of what the applicant's trying to achieve, provide additional shade in the backyard. There is a swimming pool in the backyard. Looks like it was empty when this particular aerial was taken. The building elevation, gabled roof, the pergola itself, or ramada, is here, is cocked, if you will, to the house. And then this is more of a front line view of the back of the house, so you can see addition here, and then this roof plane here is depicted up in the top exhibit. Here's some photos that Daniel took a month or two ago, so you can see here's a traffic signal on the other side of the fence at Union School in Osborne. This is the state of the construction when, you remember when that was roughly in May or June? Okay. So you can see what the building looks like. Again, required findings for a variance, there's 4. They're here on the sheet, A through D. I won't read through all of them. In our staff analysis, it is a triangular shaped lot. It's got the point down at the very sharp angle here. That does lend itself to kind of a hard spot to put anything in that part of the rear yard or the side yard setback. If you go up and down Indian School, there are other structures that are pretty close to the setback along Indian School Road. So from a context standpoint, there are other structures along Indian School Road in the neighborhood. It's a bit debatable if finding A is met, and again, finding A is regarding special circumstances. It appears that that finding has been met by the applicant. Finding B is regarding that the special circumstances were not created by the owner or the applicant. They were not. Obviously, the lot was not created by the applicant or the current owner. It is a little bit debatable on this particular finding, but it appears like that the application this finding has been met. Under C, this goes back into authorizing the variance as necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights. In our analysis of this, there are other options for outdoor use of the property. The pool, where it's configured, there's not a lot of room for any kind of a structure there. It could have been placed a little bit further away from the property line, like enclosing, finding C, whether it meets it or not is debatable. It appears that the variance did meet that finding. And then finding D speaks back to authorization of the application will not be materially detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity, to adjacent property, to the neighborhood, of public welfare in general. I mentioned if you travel up and down Indian School, you would see similar structures. I'm not sure how those were, what circumstances relate to those. We have gotten some neighborhood support letters from the applicant from adjacent properties in support. So from in terms of the materially detrimental, and I'll let the applicant speak and anybody else here that wishes to speak. It doesn't look like this is a egregious variance request, that there are people that live in the area that are in support. In conclusion, we do recommend approval of the variance. If the board agrees, we are suggesting 3 conditions should be met by the applicant. 1, that the applicant shall submit plans and obtain a building permit from the city within, we're suggesting 90 days of board action tonight. B, the roof material of the shade structure in the house shall match. They don't currently match today. And then C, the trim color of the shade structure in the house shall match, just so it ties in the shade structure itself with the rest of the house. And with that, staff's available to answer any questions that the board might have tonight.
I think this goes to your point about having a pizza-shaped lot.
Right, because otherwise, as it narrows down, there's not much you can do back there.
Right.
So, and we do have, just quickly, for the record, we do have some emails from a neighbor, Veronica Armstead, who lives at 263 South Cascada, who is in support. We also got an email from Dane, looks like Gwen, who is in the neighborhood. I don't see where. He's a next door neighbor, he says, and he's in support, as well. So we do have that. Are there any other questions of staff before we give the applicant a chance to speak? No?
I guess I have a quick question maybe for the staff. I'm just curious, because that whole street does have triangular shaped lots though. So it's not the only lot that's triangular shaped. And so I'm just curious, you mentioned that there may be other like non-conforming structures. Did you look back to see if there have been any variances approved on this particular kind of lot, or?
Chair, Board Member Dudley, no, we've not done that research. Daniel and I were talking in preparation for the hearing tonight. Like if you go further south or west on Indian School, there's a couple of structures. I believe it's, I don't want to be inaccurate, and I should have identified. I looked at it this morning. There's a structure that looks like it's about 3 feet from the rear fence on Indian School. It's the construction is slump block columns and I believe a flat roof. I believe it's this house, one of these right down in this area. So it has been done. Other structures have been constructed similar to what the applicant's proposing. I'm not sure that those went through a variance in years past.
Rachel, I think if you drove down there, you'd see a lot of them that they use the back wall as one of the walls of their.
Yeah. I have seen it, but I guess maybe we can, just for discussion, maybe, should I save my discussion for a different part? I guess I feel like we can't make a judgment on this case based on other people having already broken the rules.
Right.
So
Well,
it's an unfortunate situation.
Well, we don't know whether they broke the rules or not.
Right, and that's why I'm like, well, if
they were built, so all we can do is look at this one.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking, because if we have evidence that, like, in the past at some time this board saw all the evidence and approved a variance, then maybe that would be like, okay, well, now there's a precedent. But otherwise, I have to assume that those are non-conforming. So when
Why do you think you have to assume they're non-conforming?
well, because if they're not meeting the stated code, if everybody can see they're not meeting the stated code, we have to assume.
We don't know. There's no, other than that comment, there's no evidence in front of us as far as these other lots. So the only thing in front of us is this one.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have to decide.
So I can't use those other ones either way. That evidence to me is out because I can't use that as like a pro or a con for this case.
Yeah, we
don't
we know they're there.
Yeah.
So this is not, if this was the only one on the whole block for 2 miles, then we could suspect there was a problem. But we have a lot of issues in the older parts of town where things were built back in the,
Mm-hmm.
I know my house, I think, was built in '74, and, there's a whole lot of, houses around like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we should let's give the applicant a chance to speak. Is the applicant?
Yes, so I'm the applicant's representative. The applicant is next to me, Agustin.
Okay.
My name
Go
is
ahead,
Jorge.
would you
Yes.
stand up there and state your name, please, sir?
My name is Jorge Diaz, and so basically the owner has taken careful consideration of the design and the impact that he would have to the neighbors. So he has taken the initiative to get approval from the neighbors adjacent to him, in front of him. And everything that he has proposed complements the architectural pitch of the house and then the materials. We are willing to meet all the requirements to move forward with the construction. And we believe that the structure will enhance the overall use of the property and the backyard. He has taken also steps in the past years to improve the backyard and make it more appealing for him, his family, and the community. Thank you.
Any questions for the representative? Okay. All right. Well, at this point, I think it would be appropriate to then close the public hearing, and then we can discuss from there.
I believe there was one person who wanted to speak about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a Ben Armistead. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
My name is Benjamin Armstrong. I live at 264 South Cascada Circle, just across the cul-de-sac from our neighbor here. I'm just here in support of our neighbor. I believe it's a beautifully well-built structure. It just adds to the pleasing nature of that particular cul-de-sac. Having that structure there blocks the view of those traffic lights that we can see as we pull into our neighborhood, into our cul-de-sac. I think that kind of helps shield some of that negative, aspect of living right there. I get it. It's part of the deal we made when we bought the house, but at the same time, he's taking steps there to improve the aesthetically pleasing look of the neighborhood there. I believe it's extremely well built, and I'm in extreme support of allowing the variance there. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I think we have somebody else here, Daniel.
Yeah, do you want to? No. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to close the public hearing.
Yes.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we can move on to decision. Is there a motion?
Are we having discussion?
Yes.
Okay, I'm still struggling with special circumstance on this one. I mean, I hate these cases because it's so hard to try to follow what I think is like the law on these. When the neighborhood is saying like, we want this, because I want you to have what you want, but I'm struggling because I think that there are many lots that are in that same circumstance. So I'm struggling with that one. And then I'm also struggling with C, which is, is there some other way to achieve that same enjoyment on the lot while still remaining within the setbacks? And I think, I just feel like the structure, maybe if it came back like 3 feet, it would still be in the setbacks and they could still have the structure. So that's where I'm at.
Part of my struggle with all the setbacks is what becomes of that 6 feet? Too often it becomes a place to put your extension ladder and your old wheelbarrow and that kind of stuff instead of really utilizing it as part for your enjoyment.
Yeah.
Now maybe that is enjoyment because you got some place to store your crap.
Yeah.
But anyway, setbacks to me can be kind of two-sided.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but I guess I feel like and maybe this is idealistic of me, but I want there to be, if the setback isn't serving the community, I think there's another avenue for that. I don't know if that's our position to make that call. I don't know. What do you think?
We have so many. There's so many extracurricular structures around in this community,
Yeah.
and so many of them are not permitted or not approved. I think that the city has done the right thing to tell them to stop construction until they get their permits and until we deal with this. But the other side, John, can you bring up those pictures again,
I can.
please?
Mm-hmm.
What this does, it'll give you an idea. Yeah, there.
Yeah, I've seen it from the stoplight. I noticed it like kind of when it went up and thought, oh, there's a big structure on the side. So yeah, I know. I think it clearly will be a very nice structure for the owner.
Is that higher than the roof?
That was another question that I had, is that maybe the roof, the ridge line of that seemed a little bit, maybe even higher than the roof of the house, which is unexpected, I guess.
If you look at here, it looks like it might be, but there's another the architectural drawings. It shows that it's the same. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a little bit higher. Yeah.
Does it have that height for a reason?
The top of the ridge is 14 feet. I believe the second elevation to the bottom, I may have gotten the existing picture of the home wrong on that one, but it is below the ridge line of the existing home.
It is.
Yes.
Guaranteed.
Yes.
I think it's a beautifully designed structure.
Did you do the drawings?
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Some of those special conditions that we identified on the lot was obviously the acute angle of the lot itself, and then the centralized location of the pool in the backyard kind of very limited the usage for that area there.
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't see particularly on some of the other acute angle lots.
Yeah. John, to your point about the setbacks, I agree that it's frustrating because I can see why you're trying to get, especially in the afternoon, shade right there, and as the sun's coming down, if he has to come off the fence 7 feet, then there's a big chunk of area that is going to get sun underneath that shade structure.
Right.
But a couple months ago we denied a variance, that that was overhanging. And
Yeah,
they brought in
right.
a ton of images of look at all these non-conforming, and we still denied the variance. So this is where I'm struggling because I feel it's so important for the city to be consistent.
Well, this is a comment on what you're talking about. The evidence presented was that the structure actually was overhanging above the neighbor's property.
No.
So
It was
No, it
straight
wasn't.
up with the property.
It was right on the line.
but it was still on the line. It was.
But yes.
It was.
There was no setback.
There was some disagreement between the parties of whether it was across or not, but it sounded. My understanding was that it was on the line. So
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, anyway, the other thing too about this that makes it a little different from the others is where it sits there at that T intersection, not only do you have the lights blinking, but you have cars not just driving by, but stopping and starting at, at the light. So they have that, which people on further down maybe do not. I know it's nice to have, for one of these, it's nice when the neighbors, who are the ones that are getting more affected than anybody else, are in favor of it. It makes it easier for me. And then they back up to a major street, so there are no houses behind them, so you really narrow down to the two most affected property owners appear, are in agreement with what they're asking, so. But anyway.
How do we become more consistent? I think is really what Rachel is talking about. And I agree. Over the years, we got a real...
The biggest problem we have is all of the houses that were approved under county rules.
Yeah.
They're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting into a scenario where, what if somebody is the last house on the street?
Yeah.
Or now they're building and for some reason the neighborhood, even though they have all these things, don't want somebody else to have it. Because we've had hearings like that. But short of going back and not only changing it, but saying we're never going to do it again and make it very difficult. And then again, you look at those some of the smaller homes, in town that are older down on the south end. It's just, I just enjoy it when people are coming in, putting in money and improvements.
Yeah, I want to do something right.
For the
Yeah.
building up
Yeah.
for the neighborhood, and so. And the thing about a variance is, the whole point of a variance is it's why it's a special proceeding, is to allow the board to make some adjustments, what would otherwise not be, approved. Now, it is nicer when people come in first, so we're not looking at the structure already built. But
It's hard.
for me, when somebody does that, if it would have been approved had they gone in, then I don't get as big a heartburn as we get one where it really is.
So that was my next question though too, is because if we approve the variance, do they then need to come to DRB for this? So then we still have that added layer of.
Well, we're not, they've not come right now,
Yeah.
the variance.
I understand.
Daniel, the variance is is it?
To the chair, the variance is the item you're talking about this evening.
Right, no, I understand that, but as far as what it looks like, the structure that is built, or what we're doing tonight, does that include, if it were to be approved, does that include approving that structure visually? Do they have to go back through design review?
To be honest with you, Chair, that was something staff and I had not spoken about.
Okay.
John, I don't know if you want to weigh in?
Chair, board members, so you might remember when you convened as DRB last month, we actually had an application, I believe it's this property, one over, where we brought to you a carport, met all the setbacks, and they were going to take the two-car carport, make the improvements like you were saying, Chair, on older part of the city, reinvesting in the property and converting the carport into a garage and actually extending the garage here to meet the front plane of the house. So we are seeing reinvestment in older parts of Litchfield Park. Getting back to this application, that's a good question in terms of, does this constitute kind of a quasi-DRB approval? We thought that with these three stipulations that would make us feel better in terms of, from a staff standpoint, of ensuring, like, there's two different roof materials, so we would prefer that those match.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we asked the applicant to stop construction, so like details like matching trim color and things like that have not come into play yet, so we could, if the board approved the variance subject to these three stipulations, we feel like that's the next step for the applicant. If this was approved with these three conditions, they would then come back to building safety and planning and get a building permit and not come back to DRB or not go to DRB.
Well, if we were to approve it, those stipulations are things that normally come up out of DRB. So if we were to approve the variance, they would be having to take care of it. So to my way, if the majority vote is to approve, then I am okay with the idea that would take care of it. And if an issue comes up on that, then they would have to come back. You know, we could say, I mean, if staff, because, you know, now we're talking about, you know, color of roof material and whatnot, which are things that, if it's within our normal things that staff approves a lot administratively anyway, right? So,
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well,
Yeah, I'm still struggling too, because I think this one's so visible, so I'm like, I feel that I need to have a good reason to put my approval behind it personally, just because you know, again, like with the consistency thing, like everybody's gonna see this one in particular, and then it's just gonna be more of these like, well, what about this one? What about this one every time we come in? And so if I don't feel like really comfortable, I'm afraid I'm not gonna be able to get behind this one, I guess.
Well, it's still a variance, you know, so it's only house or problem issue by issue, instead of a blanket, you know, you gotta have it has to be all 7 feet. Well, but in this particular lot, 7 feet I don't think it works.
Yeah.
For a lot in that configuration. And I think that there's quite a few people along that same roadway that have similar issues. Now, I'm sure that there are a few of those that haven't been to the city for variance or permit or anything else. They just built them. Well, hopefully we're going to be able to work our way through that with our new code enforcement and other things. But in the meantime, even though they've gone ahead and started and have done the construction, it looks like it's pretty well built and well designed.
Yeah.
And you know that there's certain pluses to that. If look at the downside, if we deny this variance, now the reality is he's supposed to take it down. Well, are we
bring it into compliance?
Yeah. Well, if he's even able to.
Right.
And so, are we serving the community by doing that, or are we serving the community by reviewing it, having them come in here for permits and variances, which that's what we do.
So I feel like in this case, you know, if we consider that lot to have special circumstance, then essentially we have to consider all the lots.
Right.
That have that same configuration of having special circumstance.
I would think that would be reasonable.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I will make a motion that we accept the staff recommendation, that we approve the variance subject to the 3 items on the staff request as far as the roof material, the trim color, and having to submit plans and getting their permit within 90 days. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. Or you can second.
Could we add also just confirmation that the ridge line of the structure is below, like on a drawing or something? Okay.
Yeah, at or below the ridge,
Of the building.
The addition has to be at or below the existing ridge line.
Yeah, I'll accept that. We'll add that in. So we have a motion and we have a second. And with those 3 items plus the 4th, that they need to show staff the issue of the ridge line.
Right.
we got a first, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, and the motion carries.
Get your permit.
Okay, now, moving forward. Okay. Next item is adjournment.
Oh, good.
Is adjournment? Is that what you said?
Adjournment, yes, that's our next item.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Third,
Yeah.
motion passes.
We had a lot of support on this.
Well, it makes it easier when
Makes
it's
it easier for us, instead of on what you were talking about, that one overhang that was right there.
But that was my problem. Because I think like the emotions of that make you want to like go one way or the other. But I think that like our job is to kind of make the same consistent choice regardless.
consistent, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so I'm struggling with every single one of these. Like, I want to make sure that I feel satisfied that we are being consistent or can be consistent moving forward. Or,
Yeah.
It's really tough because of the county zoning is always way more.
Yeah, it's
I
very
think
weird.
you're too generous. I think there's a lot of people that try to get away with this bullshit, and I'm really tired of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I know, excuse me,